Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Taking Stock Live, where we do that. We really take stock of what we're seeing and hearing across this incredible industry of ours. And I say this a lot, but today is going to be a really special day. I'm really grateful for the conversation that you're about to listen to. Darryl Willis is someone that I have worked side by side with. I think I may have had like some small part of helping him come to Microsoft and recruit him. He's an incredible leader. He leads our energy and resources business globally. He is a storage geologist, geophysicist by profession, joined Microsoft in 2019 after a short path at Google Cloud. And as much as you're going to hear about just his deep industry expertise today and passion to transform and make a difference in the world, I think that as much as that, the people who work with and around Darryl, whether it's the team that works for him or the customers that I get to see him touch, there's no leader like him, really, in terms of not just the what, but the how. So we're gonna learn a lot today. Darryl rose up in the ranks at BP. He was the CEO of BP Angola. He was head of Deepwater Horizon Claims and the spokesperson for BP, which cannot have been an easy job every single day. And he was the senior vice president and deputy head of subsurface for BP. So just, an incredible resume, background, and never sits still, and just an incredible human. So Darryl, welcome to today.
Thank you, Shelley. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, well, we're lucky to have you now. I like to ask the leaders on this webcast, podcast, just to start out, where they started. And so, take us back to your first job and, sort of maybe early in your career where you learned some lessons that maybe helped get you to where you are today.
Yeah, my first job, very interesting question. My first job, I had two, actually. Working, one was at Wendy's, the hamburger shop, Wendy's. That was my first job, making $3.13 an hour. And I worked at Canal Brewery at night, which was a grocery store. So I was at Wendy's during the daytime and stocking shelves at the grocery store from 12 to 6 at night, saving money for college. And one of the things I learned early on in those jobs and other jobs was how important, no matter what you do, it's important to do it well. And so I was always taught by my grandmother that whatever you're going to do it right. And so I tried to apply that to Wendy's, apply it to the Canal Brewery grocery store. And that stays with me to this day. The other thing was that I kind of picked up in those early days was by watching my mom, who was a school teacher, how she interacted with the principal of the school, but also the ladies in the cafeteria and the ladies and the guys who cleaned the building. And everybody's important. So what you do matters, and doing it well, and just never forgetting that in an organization or wherever you're working or whatever you're doing, everybody is important.
Wow. Well, Darryl, I actually don't think I knew that you had retail and a QSR, quick service restaurant roots. And we've never actually talked about that. That's incredible. But I also really love what you said about the influence that your mom and your grandmother had on you. And, as I said in the lead up, I actually really see the red thread of how you lead today from maybe those lessons that they taught you early on.
Very, very special memories and times.
Yeah. Wow. So now let's go a little bit deeper on BP, because you traveled literally around the world, had a lot of different roles. I'm sure there were, like any high profile job like that, highlights and maybe, some lowlights too. And it's not every day that you get to be the spokesperson or run operations for Angola. So maybe tell us a little bit about that.
So it was an amazing, when I tell people that I spent 28 years working for BP, the first question I get is, how in the world did you stay in one place for 28 years? But it was quite amazing, because I was counting recently, and I've had, over the course of those 28 years, 14 different roles and 14 moves. And so it was like really 14 very, very unique experiences. I was fortunate enough to live in Vietnam for a period of time, in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City. I had a chance to run an operation in Moscow, spending half my time in Siberia and the other half of my time in the city of Moscow. Of course, I lived in London since BP was a British company and headquartered there. And I also had the opportunity to live in sub-Saharan Africa in Rwanda, which was a challenging place to live, but it was an exciting place. And for me, being in the energy industry for so long, it was great to live in a part of the world where energy was easily accessible, live in a part of the world where it was being developed, and live in a part of the world where it was emerging. So it was quite a journey. I think when I think about that highlight and low light, if they could be kind of juxtaposed, it would be the Deepwater Horizon. It was not a good event, terrible event in terms of what it did in the impact it had on the industry. But what was most important was how BP responded. And I was really proud that I was able to be a part of the response to try to resolve some of the issues and make sure people were treated fairly as we really improved the situation associated with the spill.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's first of all, just the to your point, sort of the range of energy accessibility experiences as you traveled the globe and led is incredible. But also, we always say that we learn more from when we fail and stumble than when we're winning. And I can't even imagine. I know as a younger marketer kind of coming up in the ranks, we really studied Deepwater to look at how BP responded, to say, what does it mean to be really all in crisis response? And you all really, and you personally set a gold standard for all of us to learn for, which is so important for us at Microsoft right now, right? With just the cyber risk that we see all around the world right now.
Yes, absolutely. I learned a lot about the importance of being empathetic, the importance of listening, the importance of just being present with people in their time of crisis.
I love that. And I think, for me and really for all of the listeners out there, there's such a lesson. When things really go wrong, there's such a just human tendency to start talking and explaining, but to actually slow down and just listen.
Yes.
And stay firm on future commitments is more important than just sort of, the blah, 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 which a lot of, sometimes we can regress to.
One of the most interesting things that happened to me, I did lots of press and I went and testified before the Senate and the House in Judiciary Committee in D.C. But one of my most interesting conversations, Shelley, was with Wolf Blitzer at CNN. I was being interviewed in the evening one day. I think I might have been in Florida. And he asked me a very candid question. He said, Darryl, are you sorry that the Deepwater Horizon happened? And I said, yes, I am sorry that it happened. He said, do you wish it never happened? I said, absolutely. And when we finished the interview and we went back into the green room, he said, you really surprised me because I didn't expect you to answer me honestly. I thought you were going to hit some talking points and spin it. But when you gave me an honest answer, I had nowhere else to go. And it just was a reminder of me the importance of being authentic and and clear.
And there's no there's no media training. There's no publicity training that train that you need to show up. And maybe it goes back to a little bit about what you said about your mom and your grandmother, like just showing up authentically with who you are. But I would imagine, the pressure for that as an executive representing the company, like those are moments of real courage to show up that way.
It was challenging because I always had people looking for an opportunity to make me say something I shouldn't say or to make me make a promise I knew we couldn't keep. So I was constantly thinking about how to be with the people of the Gulf Coast and at the same time not say anything that was not going to be there was not going to be any follow through. So it was a constant dance to get that right on a daily basis.
Wow. Well, what I have observed about you in that constant dance is you always come back to your strong internal compass, which guides you. And for that, the people of the Gulf and all of us at Microsoft are so lucky and grateful to work around you.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's true. I mean, I actually had the chance recently to watch Darryl on stage at CIRA Week, which is one of the largest energy conferences. And I think he's the only executive that's been, there's like this sort of like the true innovators hour. And he's the only executive. And these are like, we're talking about like CNN broadcasters and the head of, Purdue, like big time leaders. Darryl's the only person who has been asked back for 4 years in a row. Which I think really will help transition me to the next question around, the energy transition that you're passionate. I mean, this isn't a job for you. Like, that's one of the things I love working with you on, is that this is about a mission on the transition to clean energy and really what this means for all of our children and the planet. I mean, it seems like kind of an obvious question, but I'll ask it, like, why? Tell us more about that, and why do you think it's so important?
Oh, wow. It is something that I'm passionate about. And I feel so lucky to be able to do this work from Microsoft. And I spend a lot of time thinking about, and I think it's because I've lived in so many different places in the world where I had access to energy and not. And I think about how important access to energy is. I think about how important security around supply is, particularly given some of the things that have happened lately in Russia and the Ukraine. I think about the importance of affordability and also energy being clean. And those things don't always work in concert with each other. Accessibility, security, affordability, and the decarbonization of energy, but they're all very, very important. I remember when I lived in Angola, one morning waking up to head to work, and there was no water in my home. And there was no water in my home because there was no electricity to run the purifier that provided the showers. And at the time, I was the senior leader in the country, and I did not have access to continuous electricity, which means I didn't have access to clean water. And it created quite a bit of disruption in my home. But I remember thinking, I wonder what it's like for a person who's not the president of the company who has this issue and has to go to work. And but it was just a very interesting look into what it means to have access to continuous energy and how energy really makes the world go round and round. And even today, Shelley, there are a billion people on the planet who do not have access to energy at all. There are 3 billion people on the planet who still cook on indoor fires inside their homes. And there are 3 million people a year who die from particulates associated with cooking from those indoor fires. So this is a big challenge. And I feel like a company like Microsoft working with an industry that is trying to deliver molecules and electrons to the world can make a difference. One of my friends, and I'm going on and on here, but you can tell I'm really excited about it. One of my friends who runs this organization called the Switch Energy Alliance, he uses this quote that means so much to me, and I think about it almost every day. He says that energy won't eliminate poverty, but you cannot eliminate poverty without energy. I think about that every day. And so as long as there are people who are in need of something, we've got work to do. And I'm excited about doing that work from this platform we've got here at Microsoft.
Yeah, I mean, it is really from your experience of not having water yourself to the billion people who don't have access, or the 3 billion. It is sort of, these are things we often take for granted. I take for granted, and to kind of go back to like almost like the first principles of, this is the path, to your point or your friend's point, of eliminating poverty. We take it for granted every day. We're like, oh, the Wi-Fi is slow, but it's so much bigger than that. How do you realize some of that passion, on a day-to-day basis? And I know it's probably good days and bad days, but realizing some of that passion through the eyes of our customers here at Microsoft. And then, of course, it couldn't be a podcast if I didn't ask you a little bit about how AI is going to affect it.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because I've had some very interesting experiences. I've had the fortune of opening schools for the very first time in Africa. I literally spent time in Africa in villages where students were being taught. This was in 2015, 16, 17, under a tree. And went from being taught under a tree to actually being taught in a building without any electricity. So there's a lot of excitement around having a building to study in 2017, 16. And then the idea that we could actually study at night because we have the option of bringing light into the building was just amazing. These are very simple concepts that in the modern world or in more developed countries we take for granted. And so I also think about hospitals and how you have a better shot at having a good elective procedure or procedure period if you're in a hospital where you have access to electricity and your vaccines can be cooled and cared for. And so all of those things that we take for granted in most parts, in our part of the world, are luxuries in other parts of the world. And so then I think about how do we begin to work with companies and countries and communities to make sure they're getting access to energy. And I say to people all the time, if you don't have any access to energy, you take whatever you can get your hands on. And we want people to be able to get their hands on something that's, as I said earlier, secure, something that's affordable, and something that's clean. And so our work is with oil and gas companies and power and utility companies and mining companies, really thinking about how we work with these companies to make them more efficient, how we work with them to modernize their operations, how we work with them to think about decarbonization and accelerating sustainability activities, all in service of making sure everyone has access at the end of the day. And I know I sound like a broken record because I keep talking about access. But I also think that to answer your question about AI is just going to accelerate all of this. We've got big challenges around access and decarbonization, but I believe that AI will allow us to make sure everyone has a shot at having some energy and that they have a shot at having the cleanest energy possible in the part of the world that they live in. We talk about the energy transition all the time as if it's one thing, but I like to refer to it as energy transitions because what it looks like if you're on the west coast of the US or on the west coast of Africa or on the east coast of India is going to be very, very different. But it's all in service of access, reliability, security, and affordability. So AI, I believe, is going to really accelerate everything we do, whether it's how a power and utility company integrates wind and solar energy into its existing operations, whether it's an oil and gas company that's trying to figure out how to become a hydrogen company or figuring out how to use drilling technology to sequester carbon or CO2, whether it's a nuclear company that's trying to figure out how to use our co-pilot to help accelerate the licensing process, which can take many, many years and cost hundreds of millions of dollars. AI is going to be in the middle of everything that has to do with making sure people have access to energy. And I believe that 10 years from now or less, we will be in the middle of all of it. Microsoft will be in the middle of all of it and have a clear role to play and talk about around how we help enable this journey, this complicated, lumpy, messy journey that we're on. Sorry for that long answer.
You do not need to apologize. I have a feeling we're going to have so many comments of people just wanting to actually hear more. I mean, I love what you said about not thinking about the energy transition, but transitions and the difference of the West Coast of the United States versus the West Coast of Africa. And, you know, I got a chance just to watch you work, particularly with one of our software vendors in the nuclear permitting process and the impact we could have with these capabilities. One of the things I really admire about you, and I know a reason that you've enjoyed being at Microsoft is that, you know, we're working with the companies for the companies inside to make these transitions, as opposed to, you know, like waiting on the sidelines for something to happen. It's only going to happen with people who have expertise like you on the inside, you know, pointing our incredible technology capabilities at the hardest problems.
And partnership is so important to all of that. And the one thing I say all the time when I'm talking to our partners and our customers and even communities is that this is all about partnership. And there's no one that can do it on its own. No company, no organization, no community. We've got to figure out how to work together. Unusual partnerships, big companies and little companies, energy companies and tech companies and startups and companies that are trying to abate carbon and thinking about decarbonization as a service. We've all got to work together to solve for access and to solve for decarbonization. And I'm so encouraged and excited about what's possible. And even more so now, given generative AI and the role that the co-pilot, I believe, will play in becoming that personal assistant and personal accelerator to everything that we do.
Yeah. I mean, drawing on getting sort of that speed round that I got of watching you with customers, it seemed like, every meeting you really ask, how can we partner more deeply? And how do you think AI is going to transform your business? And we just got just everybody lean forward to share and think more broadly.
Yes. And I also try to urge them to think, at a faster pace, because I think the velocity at which we do things it matters. I was talking to an executive at a shipping company, and he was telling me about the 3-year plan and to deploy AI. And I said, it actually needs to be a 3-month plan. Yeah. And so, because there's an urgency that has to be addressed as we go through this process as well. So
you have such a lovely way of poking for acceleration and speed, but having really listened to the customer context before you add in that sense of urgency.
I try.
You succeed. All right. So it feels kind of, I don't know, trite after, some of the topics that we just talked about to kind of wrap it up with the Fun 5, but, we kind of try to do it. So we're going to put you through it too, Darryl, which is just kind of like a chance to have a little levity. So here are my Fun 5. And given where you've lived, I can't wait to hear your answer. What is the weirdest thing you've ever eaten?
I would say the weirdest thing I ever had was a raw quail egg in Vietnam.
Wow.
Yeah, it was weird. It was weird. I became friends with some people at the hotel, and they took me on the weekend to the dorms of their friends at the college, and they made me try all of these weird foods. But I never had a raw quail egg before.
Me either. It
was
wow.
weird. Yes.
Okay. Well, you live to tell the tale.
Yes.
Favorite superhero?
I would say my favorite superheroes would be my maternal grandparents. My grandmother never got past my grandfather never got past the 3rd grade. My grandmother never got past the 6th grade. And here I am at Microsoft. So for me, they raised 11 kids, and I'm one of their grandkids, and I get to work at Microsoft, and my grandparents never got to finish elementary school. So I think they are my superheroes.
Wow. I think they're mine too. Okay, if you could be a fly on the wall, who would you want to listen in on and why?
I would really be interested in listening to what the conversation might have been like in the early 90s between Nelson Mandela and F.W. de Klerk. Nelson Mandela had just gotten out of jail. He was assuming the presidency of South Africa, and just what those conversations might have been like. The man who had been incarcerated for many, many years was actually taking over the country. So that would be a fascinating room to kind of sit in and listen to that handover.
Yeah. and like a truly defining moment for me, in my child. Like I think about what's going on around the world and on college campuses now, and that transition, actually, that conversation gives me hope maybe for what we're seeing right now. Okay, I know maybe it's Microsoft. It might not be. That's cool.
Right.
Maybe probably not going back to Wendy's. But what would be your dream job and why?
My dream job is I think I would be a bartender. Would be my dream job. I enjoy making craft cocktails, but I enjoy kind of watching and listening to and learning from people. And I always find bartenders to have very interesting jobs because they see a lot. They probably hear a lot. One day, I think some bartender will write a book that'll be quite interesting. So I think I would be a bartender.
I love that.
Yeah.
I can kind of see it. Plus, you're such a foodie.
I am a foodie, yeah.
You do great pairings and all that.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, one day when you become a bartender, I'm going to occupy a stool in your bar.
Love it. I'll be looking for you.
Yeah, I'll be there. Darryl, thank you so much. What a fantastic and inspiring conversation. I think you and I probably could have gone for a lot longer, but just every time I talk to you, I learn something more and I get more inspired.
Thank you for having me. And as you know, I consider you to be an inspiration to me, and I feel lucky to be a part of this podcast. So thank you so much, Shelley.
Oh, thank you. All right. Well, it's a wrap. Thank you, all of you, for listening today. I can't wait to see your comments, your questions. I'm sure you're going to be asking for Darryl to come back. He's a busy guy. But thanks for tuning in to another Taking Stock Live. We love hearing from you and having the incredible community that we have all together. So thank you.